All right, so what we're gonna do tonight is we're gonna set up a raised bed right here with the Pathfinder bedroll sleeve. The beauty of that thing is it's multifunctional. You can use it on the ground, you can use it for a raised bed. In an emergency, you can use it for a hammock. And I've showed that on a couple different videos. But what I wanna show you today is a way to make a raised bed so that you don't have to do a lot of work and you don't need to waste a lot of cordage. So you're gonna need 4 forks and you're gonna need 2 long poles. So I've got some forks right here, and I'm going to show you about the diameter we're going to use. They don't have to be real hefty. I've got one here that's only probably 2 inches around, and one of these forks is only about 1.5 inches on one side. And we're going to use friction to hold this raised bed up. That's why we're not going to use any cordage. Follow along with me and we'll get her done. All right, so we've got ourselves a couple forks here. One is larger than the other. You can see this one's fairly big, okay? And we're just going to put it on the tree and drop it in at about a 45-degree angle from the tree, just like that. We're going to interlock the other fork on it just like this and drop it down at about a 45, and that friction right there is gonna hold everything in place, okay? The friction of those forks against that tree is gonna hold everything in place, and then our bedroll or our bed sleeve is gonna hold friction on top of these forks to hold it open so we don't need cordage. And we'll do this on the other side. The other advantage to this is we don't have a very big tree here. This is about a 4-inch tree, and it's gonna be plenty big for what we want. All right, now we need 2 more poles, about 10 feet long, somewhere in that neighborhood. 9-10 feet, be plenty long enough, just so you've got some hanging out on each end of the bedroll sleeve. Something about 3 to 4 inches in diameter is plenty. As long as it's not dead, you're probably good to go. Now, when we set this up and start putting our poles inside the sleeve, we're going to make sure that we've got a big end and a little end. In other words, the fatter end's on this side, skinnier end on that side, so they're flipped on both ends, so you've got equal amounts of tension basically on this bed. You can see that this has grommets on it up the side because it's made to be an emergency bivvy type system if needed. But we can just zip that up real easy with a sapling, I'll show you that, and it will hold that closed just fine on this system. So the first thing we want to do is we want to shuck our poles down inside there. So we'll just grab them one at a time and slide them right down the end. Like that. Again, leave ourselves a little bit of stick out on both ends. And then put the other side in. All we really need for lacing up these holes is a small sapling. We'll just cut all these limbs off of it. And this just needs to be a diameter that will fit through those grommets, is all we really need. I got it longer than what I think I'm gonna need. I'm gonna cut it off right here at the end, just like that. And that should be plenty for us right there. All right, so now all we're gonna do with this is we're going to close that up and basically just lace it, just like this. In and out, in and out, in and out. As long as we can get through the grommets, we're gonna be in good shape with our stick. And we just keep pushing it up as far as it needs to go. And if it doesn't go all the way to the end, it's not a big deal. As long as you get most of the grommets, it's gonna be fine. You got one here and one here that aren't covered, but with that much coverage, you're gonna be fine. You'll see here in just a minute. Now, all we're gonna do is come in here and pick this whole thing up just like this. Walk in here, drop it in, pull it across, drop it in the other side just like that, and even it up to where we want it. So we've got an even bed. And this is why I was telling you, it doesn't matter if you're not sewn all the way up, because you're probably gonna have a longer bed sleeve anyway, and you've got space here. So if you drop back one full grommet back here, you're not gonna hurt anything. Let's go back one full grommet here, and open up the second one here. And that kind of gives you a fold right there for your longer. And once we got that, again, no cordage. Everything is friction held, okay? And we're good. This will be a fantastic night's sleep once we put the mattress on top of this, or if we stuff the inside of this envelope with debris, but we've got a mattress, we'll use it. Now we get the air mattress stretched out here. Open up the valves on that dude. And we'll let that dude inflate, go about other camp chores. Now we have battled any convection problems because we've got insulation between us and any airflow underneath, like a hammock would have. We've also taken care of conduction problems because we're not laying directly on the ground. We've taken care of moisture issues if it's not going to rain, if the ground is wet or has snow on it, because we're off the ground. And if it were going to rain or snow tonight, we're obviously between two trees. It's very easy to string up a tarp between those two. Over the top of this, your trees are further out than your bed sleeve by a good 1.5 feet, 2 foot almost on each side. So you could easily stretch a tarp over this to protect it from getting wet and sleep on this thing very, very comfortably. So when I'm setting this dude up, I close up one end of this and I just tie it off. Just cinch it up, tie it off, and I zip it up, 4 or 5 inches, and I usually clip this over just to make sure it doesn't come undone. Just like that, cinch it down tight. You've got a little bit of a gap right here, and you really want that because you want some breathability in here. You don't want your feet sweating in this thing. So if you've got a little 1-inch gap right here, don't sweat that. Put that right down on the bottom like that. Spread that quilt out and use it just like you would use an overquilt over this nice, big, thick, heavy air mat. I mean, that thing is thick. You're gonna be warming that thing all night, guaranteed. Okay, Whoopee jacket pillow, all right? Pretty simple. All I do is zip this bad boy up just like that, fold the arms in, make sure anything like these cord locks that's sticking out, that's hard on you, goes to the inside. Fold everything into the hood. Kind of take your hood laces and pull them out so you can get to them. Just like that. Stuff everything into the hood. And then pull your drawstrings down around it. Just like this. Draw that down tight. Just tie it over in a bow. It's not a big deal. And I just tuck all of that down inside like that. And that gives me my pillow for the night. All right, so the next secret to sleeping in cold weather is never ever sleep in the socks you've been wearing all day long. That is a foolish thing to do. What I generally do is, and you can do it the way you want to, because if you want to put on a pair of oversized socks that are fairly loose, that's okay. If you got a pair of sleep booties because your feet get cold that are down or something like that, that's okay too. What I tend to generally do is crawl into my system with the socks on that I've been wearing, take them off as soon as my feet get warm. I take those socks off, put them outside somewhere to dry for the night so that I can put them back on in the morning. Or if I'm carrying a second pair of socks, I'll put the clean pair on the next morning, but I never sleep in socks. And you definitely never want to sleep in the socks you've been wearing all day long, okay? Socks that you wear normally restrict the circulation of your feet. They're too tight and they're gonna be damp from sweating. Your feet sweat a lot. So you've got to get rid of that or your feet are never gonna be warm in a wintertime environment. A system like this will keep you plenty warm down into the 30s easy. If you're dressed correctly, like I said, colder than that, all right? This is a 4.7 R value pad. So it's gonna be good down to 0, no problem at all. This forest quilt is good to about 35, but if you've got a good base layer on, like merino wool like I'm wearing, you can get down to the 20s with that easy enough too, especially if you understand how to work the system and you've got it combined with a good sleep pad. The biggest mistake people make is what they're sleeping on top of. That is the key to everything. You can get away with a whole lot less here than you can here. You need 3 times more under you than you need over you. If you remember that simple rule, you'll be fine. 3 times as much insulation below you as you have on top of you, okay? I'll snug that foot box right up on my feet there. That pillow set. That blanket over me, and I'm gold. Pretty simple, really. Not a hard system. This thing's plenty big. I can get this thing all the way over my head. Pull this thing in, tuck it in on the sides underneath me if I want to. And I can tell you right now that with this merino wool on, I haven't been laying here 5 minutes and I'm already way warm, okay? Probably as warm as I'd want to sleep. And if my head is gonna get cold, I've got a buff in the pocket of my vest all the time. I'll throw that buff on my head. But I can pretty much regulate by sleeping with this thing over my head. There's plenty of breathability underneath this thing that I don't get sweaty. And if I do, I can just kick it off. I don't mind tucking it up around me like this. Again, a buff on the head makes a huge difference when you're doing this. It is not hard to sleep in cold weather if you understand what you're doing. Insulation is the key to everything. If you can't feel anything underneath you, whether you're in the air or on the ground, that's the key. Because what's over top of you doesn't have to be very much. It just has to trap heat. That's its job, to trap the heat. And the job below you is to make sure that you battle conduction or convection. End of story, it's that simple.